Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, October 19th, 2024. My name is Sam Shalhoub, and it's time for your Daily Dispatch Special Edition. We have a new guest with us today. Our guest is a former newspaper reporter for 25 years, who has now moved into the public information officer capacity. Let's welcome Ted Czech to the show. Ted, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. Okay, Ted. So, give the audience a little background here. Now, you were a former newspaper reporter for 25 years,
Correct.
and apparently, through a course of events, I'm sure that you have become somewhat disillusioned with media. So, before we even get to that, give people a little background about you and who you are and what you've done.
Absolutely. I grew up in New England, and I originally, when I went to school, when I went to college, I wanted to get into law enforcement. So I got a degree in criminal justice and tried to go that route initially. But then somewhere in my job search, I had a change of heart and decided that was not really the route that I wanted to take. And I always enjoyed writing. I always, creative writing in school, always excelled at that. And beyond that, my mother was a newspaper reporter, and before that, my grandmother was a newspaper reporter as well. Both of them in the Midwest, and so I guess you could kind of say it was in the blood. And so I thought about things, and I said, well, I want to do something with writing. I don't want to be a professor because that's going to take me forever to get a PhD. Because I don't want to teach high school kids. I want to teach college kids if I were to teach at all. So I said, well, let's try journalism. So I tried one course and loved it and just went from there. And so I worked full time and I pursued my degree part-time at night and kind of just went year round and got my second degree and then started my job search. I worked for a couple newspapers in New England and then got a job in Pennsylvania in 1998 and have been here ever since. And yeah, you're right. It was probably, I would say, the last 5 years or maybe more of my tenure, as a journalist. And I did all my work in crime and emergency writing, by the way, reporting. But I started to see some changes in the craft of journalism, and I kind of split this, the craft of journalism and the industry of journalism. And I started seeing some major shifts within both of those that really alarmed me because the craft and the industry of journalism is what I was passionate about. So, and I'll give you an example. At one point, I was told at my newspaper that we weren't going to use mugshots anymore of suspects, and I was told that it wasn't fair to certain minority groups that we would do that. And I'm thinking, well, when I write stories, that's not a concern of mine. I'm looking at the crime. What is the crime? Is this newsworthy? And as it turned out, I mean, there were people of all races that were committing crimes that I was reporting on. So I just it didn't compute with me. But that's just one example. So and
it's funny. It's funny you say that you were thinking about law enforcement because when I was 16 years old, I had the idea that I wanted to be a police officer. So I went through this rigorous testing situation in a local city here in Los Angeles. And at first I went through, I think it was the sergeants, and it was like 100 of us. And then like 20 of us made it to the captains, and then 10 of us made it to the lieutenants, and then only 3 of us all made it all the way up to the police chief. And we were accepted into the cadet program, but they said, well, we don't have any openings right now, but you guys are the first ones to come in as soon as those openings happen. And so in the next following few months, instead of going into law enforcement at the age of 17, I decided to become a bouncer in a nightclub, underage, outside of the scope of law. And that's the direction my life took at that point. So we have a little bit of synchronicity there. Looks like he
Yeah.
went into something with a little more integrity than what I did. But
Wow. Hey,
so
we need bouncers too, you know,
yeah,
gotta have those.
exactly, exactly. So we talked a little bit about this delusionment. Tell me what you see the difference between the media reporters and journalists of today versus 25 years ago.
Well, the main thing that I said, well, there's many things, but kind of the overarching theme is one of activism. It actually and activism and the disregard of objectivity, which is one of the chapters in my book. It seems from all that I've discovered that reporters now or journalism students are being taught in colleges and universities to disregard objectivity and and that they've been given the moral latitude to take a side in their writing, even when it's a straight news story. I'm not talking about op-eds and columns. That's where opinion should be and should remain. But journalism students are being told, hey, it's okay to inject your opinion into your stories. They've been given the moral latitude to do that. And that's not what I would call true journalism. True journalism is
Right.
objective, being fair, being balanced.
Truth based.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Being accurate, being timely, all of those things, all of those qualities, all those pillars of journalism that I was taught. And it's interesting because Christiane Amanpour, she went to the same place that I did. She went to the University of Rhode Island and got a degree before I did. But she has come out and said that, against objectivity. She calls it both sidesism. Like that's not really a word, but it's a made up word, weaponized against, in my opinion, it's weaponized against exercising true journalism, practicing true journalism, presenting both sides of an issue, or as many sides as there are of an issue. That's what true journalism is. She's against that. And I said, well, wait a minute. She went to the same school I did. She had probably some of the same professors I did. That's not the way that she was taught. I can just tell you that is not the way she was taught. So somehow, somewhere along the way, she picked this up, and now she's delivering big talks about it. I think the one where I saw it was to Columbia. So yeah, that's
which academia in general has been obfuscated to the nth degree. And then
Columbia is considered one of, if not the top journalism school in the country.
Wow.
So yeah,
they've just hidden the truth, and yeah, I agree. Well, would that also have something to do with, Ted? It's my understanding that of all the news corporations in America, that they're all owned by 4 companies, and therefore specific talking points are given out at 4 a.m. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of those montages of local news channels where they're saying the exact same thing all over the country. I mean, verbatim. Would you agree that that is part of the issue?
Well, yes. In a word, yes, because that just shrinks the diversity of of media outlets, and we want to have a wide swath of media outlets out there for all sorts of different audiences. So when you limit it like that, then everything is narrowed down, and I've seen those videos that you're talking about, and it is kind of shocking that clearly they all got the same piece of paper and said, and we're told, read this verbatim. And so that's just one, that was just one, chain, if you will. But when you look at Disney and ABC or how does it go exactly? It's like ABC owns Disney and ESPN. I think that's how it works. Yeah, and that's just one. That's just one group. I've heard that
and they all have a political agenda that they're trying to acquire. They're trying to advance.
It appears as though they do, yeah. And I've heard George Soros is trying to acquire 200 radio stations in the country.
Well, yeah, that is part of it. Now, I have a different perspective on some of that, and I won't get into that on this show, but I believe that has something to do with continuity of government and some other things that are happening behind the scenes.
Hmm.
So I'm not as worried about that. But getting back to the journalism part,
Yeah.
before the show, we had a little discussion and we talked about the emergence of fact checking.
Right.
Give me a little, of your perspective and insight onto this whole new fact checking thing that's emerged over the last several years.
I can remember being this was during COVID, so all of us at my newspaper were in our homes. So we had a Teams meeting. Every morning we would have a meeting, and during COVID it would be through Teams. And fact checking was brought up. Not that my newspaper, which was like a small, relatively, small regional newspaper, not that we were doing it or had anybody dedicated to it, but the issue was brought up, and I said, I just uncorked, who fact checks the fact checkers? And
Very good point.
There was a take on The Watchmen, the movie The Watchmen, if you've ever seen that, where the phrase "who watches the Watchmen" is that's in the movie, and what it means is you have these superheroes who were tasked with protecting society, but then somehow there was a revelation that, hey, maybe these superheroes are actually human. They're not all they're cracked up to be, and they're they have flaws just like anybody else. So
Right.
who watches the Watchmen? So I said, who fact checks the fact checkers? And one of my coworkers said, well, I believe he said that's a real nihilistic attitude to have.
Wow.
But I meant it, like, who anointed them the ultimate arbiters of what is true and not true? They'll take something and then they'll look at their sources and they'll say, well, based on these sources, this thing over here is incorrect. But what about, let's take a look at the sources that you used to say that is incorrect, and let's look at your biases that you might have. So,
Which everybody has biases and filters that they look at life through. I get
yeah.
that. But when you've lost the moral high ground, I think that's where part of the challenge comes in journalism anyway.
And as a reporter, at least what I was taught was that you, to the best of your absolute best of your ability, you take off your opinion hat and you put on your professional journalism hat, and you just collect all of the information that you possibly can, and you lay it out there for your readership, your viewership, and you say, look, this is everything that I know at this point in time. And then they can kind of use that as a jumping off point to conduct further research or investigation on their own if they'd like. They can sure. Use their critical thinking, and that's, I think, what one of the issues is that professors and editors, news editors, don't think that the American public can use their critical thinking. Right. They want to tell the American public how and what to think, and right. That's very insulting. I believe.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
And so,
which is part of the whole system. When we talked off stage, off camera, we talked a little bit about academia and what's going on with the schools and the students and what have you. And you had said that you've seen a marked difference between what took place 25 years ago versus what's happening now.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As far as I can determine, in colleges and universities, this is what they're being taught and it goes by several names, whether it's activism journalism, or advocacy journalism, or even solidarity journalism. To me, it's not true journalism. It's not. It is junk journalism, if you will. I kind of coined that phrase, junk journalism. But I
like that term. I've never heard of it.
There you go. Yeah, well, I guess I made it up then.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's in the book, and yeah. So, the book. We have to mention the book, Sam.
Well, yeah, of course, we're getting to that. But yeah,
all right.
Well, let's jump right into it now. So, I know that you wrote a book. Let's see what it looks like. Saving the Beast. Oh, I love it.
Except for this band right here. This is what they put on. This is a proof copy. But Saving the Beast, a recovering reporter reflects on America's broken media and how to fix it.
So, tell us about the book. Give us some
insight. It's kind of a long title, But yeah, and you can see there's a beast right here, and then down at the bottom, there's a trap that I labeled fake
Oh,
news.
wow.
So yeah, a lot of symbolism there. But so in journalism, we have this phrase, feed the beast. You got to feed the beast, you got to feed the beast. And that meant essentially that you had to produce content. So it's an everyday thing. You're always under the gun. You're always on deadline. If you work for a daily newspaper or a TV station or a cable network, doesn't matter. You're always under deadline. You always have to produce. It's always, what have you done for me lately? Not
Right,
forget what you did yesterday. Forget
right,
what awards you won. None of that matters. It's always, what have you done for me lately?
right.
So feed the beast. But it wasn't ever truly defined what the beast was. Was it your readership or viewership? Was it your editors? Was it the
The
industry itself?
sponsors.
Sponsors? We tried to keep that wall between the newsroom and advertising. Tried to keep that wall up as much as we could. So what exactly was the beast? And for my purposes for this book, I said, well, to me, the beast is the craft of journalism, and it's the industry of journalism. And to me, from all that I had determined, it needed to be saved because it was eating itself from within by adopting certain ideologies and then pushing those on its readership or viewership. So that's how I came up with the phrase "save the beast." And so I don't have it here, but I sketched when I was working with my editor, I sketched a kind of a werewolf type creature and and a little, like a bear trap or whatever, and sent that. Actually, I had two iterations of that. I sent that to my editor. She, although I'm generally speaking against AI, and we can get into that if you want, but she used AI to construct the cover that you saw there,
Oh, interesting.
with the trap and the fake news. It's the trap of fake news.
Right, right,
Uh, that is just about to devour the beast. So
right, right.
that's the whole story behind the cover there. And
So,
so
what are some? Give us a little bit of hint, without giving away too much. Give us some of the hints of the content of the book.
yeah, so I've got three sections. The first one is kind of a, how did we get here? So I look at some of the sins, some of the transgressions of journalism. Some of them are actually down to individuals who have committed transgressions in journalism. Um, like Janet Cook, she was probably the first one. She was a writer for the Washington Post. She
Mm.
totally fabricated a story about I think it was an 8-year-old heroin addict, and she
Hmm.
actually won the Pulitzer Prize for that. And
Really? Well,
yep,
that doesn't surprise me. I mean, President Trump talks a lot about Pulitzer and what's going on there, and
hmm,
these people should be giving the awards back. But go ahead.
right. So in this case, it was discovered that this whole story was concocted, and so she did have to give the award back.
Oh,
But then
wow.
there's been others that have followed her, and I think that boils down to the vetting process for journalists, and also the mentoring process
Mm.
that should go on at newsrooms.
Right.
So I look at that, and then I look at other examples of how the media have fallen prey, or maybe not by accident. Maybe they
Exactly.
have fully embraced
Right.
certain, as I said, ideologies, and then pushed them on the American people and told them how and what to think. So I look at some examples of
As
that.
as opposed to offering information and encouraging people to think for themselves.
Right, exactly. And then
Right.
once it is discovered that maybe they took the bait on something, they never really say, "Hey, you know what? We kind of messed up here." That
Right.
is, I think so. So in a newspaper, which I know the best, corrections were always, you had to hunt for those, and they were just like a little square down at the bottom of
Right.
the
Right.
fifth page or whatever. Why not paste it across the top, above the fold, headline? Why not do that
Mhm.
to show that you're really contrite?
Sure.
But and I'll just, like I said, we don't want to give away too much, but a couple of the things that I do mention, like the peaceful protests of 2020. Hardly peaceful, right?
Perfect example.
Hardly peaceful at all. But
Buildings burning in the background,
right,
people
right.
running amok, but it's
Peaceful.
mostly peaceful.
Peaceful. Yeah. The laptop from hell, Hunter Biden's laptop. Oh, but the security, or the intelligence committee, or excuse me, the intelligence community said that was Russian disinformation. Well, it was proven that it wasn't Russian disinformation, but did the mainstream media ever say, hey, you know what? We're sorry, we messed up? I mean, maybe low key they did, but they didn't really broadcast it to the level that they broadcasted that these intelligence folks said that it was Russian disinformation.
It's interesting that you bring up that laptop story, because at the time I had a older friend of mine. She just a wonderful woman in her mid 70s, early 80s, and she was very liberal, and she knew I was very conservative. And we had a discussion after the election, and she said, "Sam, did you hear about this laptop thing about Hunter Biden?" I said, "Oh yeah." And her response to me was that had she known about that prior to the election, she would have never voted for Biden. And I was like, wow. And this coming from a dyed in the wool Democrat, liberal, wonderful lady, but coming from her, that was pretty significant in my book.
Right. And it's widely believed that could have made a difference, a big difference in the election. So that's
I don't think that the results that we saw are anywhere near accurate, but that's coming down the line. I hope we'll see.
Right, the whole hockey stick thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I talk about some other ones like Ray Epps, the Steele dossier, so things like that. And then the second section of the book is the fallout from those transgressions. What has happened? What are the manifestations of these transgressions? And I look at things like the mass layoffs that the media has felt that they had to do.
Well, their viewership is down by 60-70%.
Right. It ends up becoming this vicious cycle. You lose viewership, readership, so you have to lay people off. You lay people off, the product suffers. The product suffers, you lose viewership and readership, and it just keeps going around and around and around.
Right.
Keeps perpetuating.
Which actually, given the state of current media, is probably a good thing for the old guard.
Good thing in what way, Sam? I'm sorry.
Well, in terms of not having the truth coming out, we need honest journalism, and we haven't gotten that in mainstream in a long time. And now with the advent of citizen journalism, like we're doing, I mean, my gosh, it's a whole new world. It's a new media.
Well, yeah. So, right. And
anyway, go ahead. Sorry. Second section.
That's quite all right. So this is the second section is kind of the manifestation. So the layoffs. Journalism is actually, from this one poll that I found, is the most regretted major by college graduates.
I didn't know that.
By a lot.
Wow.
And so what I say is, okay, that was good, but the follow-up question should be why? Why do you regret it? Is it because you can't make much money doing it? Is it because a lack of mobility within the structure? Is it that you're taking a lot of heat from the public? Very little in the way of thank yous. What any number of things. You don't see a future in it. What is it? So that the why should have been there. It's I did find one source that said that it quite possibly could be because the journalists are being asked to foist their opinions, and I guess some of them are uncomfortable with that. But I felt like when I was in newsrooms, I was the odd man out because I had views that differed from a lot of other my coworkers. But then in the third section, I move on to how to fix it, which is part of the title of the book, because I don't like it when I read something and somebody's taking something to task, somebody's criticizing something, and then they never provide any solutions.
Right.
So that always frustrates me. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to draw on my 25 years as a reporter, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to lay out my prescription if the news media really, really wanted to repair the damage that they've wrought over the past couple of decades. But first of all, I say that I liken it to a drug addict in that they've got to hit rock bottom. And I don't know that the news media has hit rock bottom yet. Because all the people in the world can have interventions for someone who's a drug addict. You can have interventions all you want, but that person has to say, you know what, I'm the problem. I'm the problem, and only I can fix it. And I don't know if they've reached that point. It probably boils down to money. They probably haven't lost enough money yet.
That's probably a big part of it. And it's funny because there's a gentleman that I follow. His name is Mike King, Mike S. King. He's a published author. He has a news website called realnewsandhistory.com. Phenomenal researcher. The gentleman is head and shoulders above most people in journalism today. And I would encourage you, as well as you viewers out there, to go to Mike S. King's website, Real News and History. And, he lays out so many different things that I think are absolutely critical for making this cruise ship of media steer in the right direction.
Okay, yeah, no, I definitely will check it out for sure.
So the third section is solution.
Right. So, but first of all, the mainstream media has to realize that they are the problem. Once that happens, and it kind of sounds a little simplistic, if you will, but say you're sorry. Say you're sorry and mean it. Because the American people, what I've realized is the American people are forgiving. If you are contrite, because everybody loves a comeback, right?
Sure.
It's a classic story. You're down in the dumps and then you rise up out of it. Everybody loves that story. It's a great Hollywood story. So I think if you are contrite, but if you're gonna if you're gonna talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So saying you're sorry is one thing, but then you have to execute that change. You say, we're sorry for
words don't mean anything. That's an old adage that I've heard for years. I can't hear a word you're saying because your actions speak so loudly.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying, it sounds like.
Right. So we're sorry for decades of deception, and now we're going to make a change. And you need to put that across the top of the newspaper. You need to broadcast it if it's a cable station or whatever, cable network. Even do it grassroots and have some meetings, town hall meetings. You gotta get somebody from your organization that's got a thick skin, but get them in there and take the heat from the public and just get down on that grassroots level and tell them, hey, look, we're gonna do better. We're gonna do better. So that one thing is the apology, and then from there, I talk about a lot of other things, but not doing your due diligence as a news organization and not just taking the bait on things. For example, there was at the beginning of the Israeli Palestine war that happened. There was a report from the Palestinians that there was a missile that was shot into a hospital. I don't know if you recall this one.
Yeah.
All these people died and everything like that. And as it turned out, that wasn't that one, and they blamed it on the Israelis. Media took the bait on that one. Actually had to issue some corrections on that. I was kind of surprised that they did, but they did. So that was another thing. It's like I have a phrase in there: the thirst to be first. And yes, it's
very nice.
Yeah, the thirst to be first usually means you're the worst.
And it runs right parallel to clickbait.
Yeah. So, and look, nobody knows, or I know that in journalism, you want to be first, you want to be timely, but you've got to be correct. You've got to be accurate, and I think just that thirst to be first has just overtaken, and so the mainstream media will just grasp onto anything and just get it out there, and they're not doing their due diligence, checking things out first, and waiting.
And I agree with that. I personally implement something called what I call the 48-hour rule. Something will happen. It looks hellacious or whatever it might be, but I do my best to wait 48 hours to find out more information before I report on it, because so many things change in the first 24 and 48 hours, and I don't want to give out false or misleading information.
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Well, it sounds like you got one heck of a book there,
oh,
Ted.
thank you, Sam.
I'm
Thank you.
looking forward to reading it, man.
Thank you very
I was
much.
able to flip through it a little bit, but man, I think that's fantastic. So let's wind it up here. So
Hmm.
first off, tell me where people can find your book.
It's on Amazon. You can put in my name, Ted Czech. So that's Tedczech. Last
Mhm.
name is like Czechoslovakia, or well, the Czech Republic. Uh,
Okay.
so you can do it that way. You can put in Saving the Beast. There may have been a couple other books out there with the same title, but if you put my name in and put Saving the Beast in, that'll get you directly to it. So I'm on
Okay.
Amazon. If for whatever reason you don't prefer Amazon, I'm on all the other ones like Books a Million, Barnes and Noble,
Okay.
all those other major booksellers. I'm there as well.
Excellent. And then in terms of people wanting to find you online, can you give our audience some of your social media if they want to reach out to you?
Sure. I'm on YouTube. That's at Recovering Reporter. Or you could,
Okay.
again, you could put my name in and you could find it that way, but also
Okay.
at Recovering Reporter. I'm on X as Ted Czech, Facebook, Instagram, all the major ones for sure.
Okay,
LinkedIn,
wonderful.
LinkedIn, how we connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Wow. Gosh, Ted, what a absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. I'm
Oh,
sure
thank
you're
you,
going to
Sam.
get all kinds of people reaching out to you. So we're going to wind it up for today. And I would love to have you back on at some point if you're open to that.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. 100%. I think you're doing a great
Okay.
thing right here with your show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I do my best. It's funny. I've been a truth follower for over 40 years.
Mm.
And for years, I've had people say, "Oh, Sam, you got to do a podcast." And I'm like, no, I'm not the guy in front of the camera. Finally, almost 2 years ago now, I threw a couple videos up on TikTok and it's just exploded.
Oh,
And
that's
so I
great.
thought, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing at this point.
There you go. It led
So,
you to that. Just like I felt compelled to write this book.
yeah,
I needed to get it out of me. It was a catharsis for me. There's all these
right.
things bottled up inside of me. And I tell you, when I left the newspaper, I felt sort of, you could call it abandonment issues, because I felt terrible leaving my coworkers there. I hoped
Right.
that all of them could get other jobs elsewhere, and some of them have.
Right.
But yeah, I felt bad about leaving.
Well, we are in a paradigm shift, to say the least, not only from a media standpoint, politically, agriculturally, um, the medical profession. We are in such a huge shift that, it's interesting. Like I said, I've been in this almost 40 years,
Hmm.
and I've seen more people wake up in the last 4 years compared to the last 4 decades. So I'm
Fascinating.
encouraged. I think we're moving in the right direction. Is it going to be bumpy for a little while? Yeah. But I think
Right.
the end goal is where we win.
That sounds great. I like that. And
Yeah.
I'm a glasses half full kind of guy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
actually, the glass is completely full. It's maybe half full of water, but still got half full of air. So it's completely
there
full,
you
right?
go. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Well, Ted, once again, thank you so much for being on the Daily Dispatch Special Edition. And we will talk again soon.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's great to be here.
Thank you.